Well, ladies and gents, this is World War I 1914 by the channel Epic History TV. We finished Napoleonic Wars of Epic History TV. So people suggested I should do the World War I of Epic History TV. So yeah, we're doing it. And I've seen a lot of videos of World War II. I've seen some videos of World War I. So I should know something about this, but there's going to be lots of element in this that I have no idea about it. So it's going to be fun watching this. So World War I, otherwise known as the Great War, because they thought there's not going to be another one. Clearly they were wrong. So the Great War, it started, first of all, it fought between two groups. One group was, I guess, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and I think Ottoman Empire. They were called Central Power. And other was basically everyone else: UK, USA, Russia, Italy, France. They were the Allied forces. So basically it started when Archduke of Austria, Archduke of Austria got shot, and that basically did the chain reaction that caused this. That bound to happen when you have two groups where every country is allied with one group. So any of that group's country get any hurt, two groups get at each other's throat, which what happened in World War I. So some people I've heard saying that if Archduke was never shot, the war would never have started. But I don't think that's true, because yes, Archduke getting shot, that started everything, but there was already instability there. There was already tension way high. So some other event could have caused this anyway. Because let's be honest, Europe has been at war with each other for past 8-9 centuries. At certain times they have been war at each other at such a large scale that a war ends and just a decade or two later they start another war. Again the war ends, another decade or two later another war starts. I mean, look at the World War. World War I ends, and I think a decade or two, maybe three later, World War II starts. I mean, to put that into perspective, anybody who's 25 and older would remember year 2000. I mean, they would be still small, but they would kind of remember the year 2000. And right now it's 2020. I mean, sure, if 2 decades kind of feel that long, but not that long. I mean, imagine if there was a major war that ended in 99 or something. And this 2020, another major war just starts now. You feel like it just ended yesterday and just started now. 2 decades is not that long. So there's lots of wars in Europe that one ended, another started immediately after a decade or two later. So, and also that brings me to another point. Since the World War II ended, there hasn't been any war in Europe for past 70-80 years. So Hitler was such an a-hole that everybody that's it, it's just too much. Let's make European Union and just do whatever we need to do, and let's not go to war again. They have been at peace for 80 years at the gigantic scale, at least. That has never happened in past 7-8 centuries. So that's just ridiculous. So yeah, World War I, let's watch that. And also, they didn't thought that when Napoleon was going on, the 7 Years' War and the World War I, all these things happened. Nobody was thinking that. But Hitler was such a bad example, not because his effect, because of his perception of him too. The way he looked, the way he talked, he looked entirely, radical and psychotic. So people like, okay, another one like this cannot rise. So they just created a union and they have been peace for 80 years now. So yeah, let's watch World War I.
(1914). The great powers of Europe are divided into two rival alliances: the Triple Entente, France, Britain, and Russia, united by fear and suspicion of Germany, Europe's new strongest power. And the Triple Alliance: Germany, which fears encirclement by its rivals; Austro-Hungary, clinging on to a fragile empire; and Italy, seeking gains at French expense.
Italy was with Germany and Austria? I didn't know that. I thought Italy was part of Allied forces.
The spark comes on the 28th of June in the city of Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is assassinated by a 19-year-old Slav nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. Austro-Hungary accuses its Balkan rival Serbia of having aided the assassin and sends an ultimatum demanding humiliating concessions. Serbia rejects the ultimatum, and Austro-Hungary declares war. Within hours, Austrian forces are shelling Belgrade. The Russian Tsar, Nicholas II, feels honor-bound to defend Serbia, a fellow Slav nation, and orders the Russian army to mobilize. German Emperor Wilhelm II has promised his support to Austro-Hungary.
Nicholas. Was it in, oversimplified video or what? I saw what happened to him and his family and under the Soviets. It's just horrible, man.
Hungary. He and his generals see conflict with Russia as inevitable, and the sooner the better, as Russian strength grows year on year. Russian mobilization is used to justify German mobilization, followed by a declaration of war on Russia. Germany knows war with Russia means war with Russia's ally, France. It has developed the Schlieffen Plan to meet this threat of a war on two fronts. First, its armies will advance rapidly through neutral Belgium to encircle and destroy French armies near Paris and win a quick victory. Then its forces can move east to deal with Russia, whose huge army will take much longer to mobilize. And so Germany declares...
Belgium is in such a bad place, isn't it? Because even in World War II, Hitler wanted to invade some part of France and he routed through Belgium. It's like Belgium's like, do you any of you want to invade me, or I'm just in a way? Everybody just bypasses Belgium to go to France.
Declares war on France. 6 million men are now marching to war across Europe. Italy, however, remains neutral. The terms of the Triple Alliance don't bind it to join an offensive war. The United States also declares its neutrality. President Wilson and the American public have no desire to get entangled in Europe's war. Britain is France's ally, but at first it's not clear if it will join the war against Germany. But when German troops invade Belgium, whose neutrality Britain has guaranteed, an ultimatum is sent from London to Berlin, demanding they withdraw.
Yeah, it's not about just guaranteeing the freedom, it's just if you invade Belgium, it's just too close to Britain. So their security gets threatened, that's the biggest issue.
It's ignored, and Britain declares war. A British expeditionary force lands in France, while the German invasion is held up for crucial days by Belgian resistance at the fortress city of Liège. German troops commit several massacres against Belgian civilians. The atrocities are inflated by Allied propaganda and help turn public opinion in neutral countries against Germany.
Every
France.
war, World War I, World War II, every time that is countries are at war, wars happen in the civilian streets, and civilian always gets caught in the crossfire, even though every soldier who fights in the war are kind of a civilian of their own country. They have relatives, those are civilians, but whenever they go to opposing countries, doesn't matter if their moral is good, they always do these atrocities, which I don't understand. There is always the case of whether it's US soldier or any other soldier, German soldier, Russian soldiers, it's just they always do some heinous atrocities. It's just like, come on, man. War is created by leaders of countries for some stupid reasons, fought by soldiers. Civilians just get in the middle, man. They're always collateral.
Unaware of Germany's great encircling attack, launches Plan 17, an offensive into German territory. But in the Battle of the Frontiers, they're driven back with enormous losses on both sides. The British Expeditionary Force clashes with the German army at Mons, but the British are heavily outnumbered and soon join the French in retreat. The Allies make their stand at the River Marne, 40 miles outside Paris. Their desperate counterattack saves the city and drives the Germans back. Both sides suffer 250,000 casualties. The race to the sea begins as both sides try to outflank each other to the north. A series of clashes leads to the First Battle of Ypres, where the Allies desperately cling on and prevent a German breakthrough. There are more heavy losses on both sides. The two armies then dig in along the entire 350-mile front, seeking shelter from deadly machine gun fire and artillery shells. Trench warfare has begun.
Trench warfare is horrible, man, because there's trench on both sides and there's a middle no man's land. That's just horrible, man. People, countries always gives orders for soldiers to just march forward, even though everybody knows who are gonna get marched forward is gonna get slaughtered one way or another. So it's just ridiculous. When you're a soldier at the trench, it's like order comes, all right, it's time to charge. I mean, it basically is it's time to go ahead and die. I mean, how do you process that? No man's land is riddled with all the dead bodies and things. Always cannon fire happening, machine gun sounds. Ugh. There was a episode of the Blackadder, I think, of Rowan Atkinson's TV show, in which there was a scene where he's at the trenches. That scene was about World War II, I think, but still there was a scene about trenches and where they just march forward, and that's where the episode ends. It just hit harder, man. Even though there was a comedy show, that scene hit way harder to me.
British warships win the first naval battle of the war at Heligoland Bight, sinking 3 German cruisers. Britain has the most powerful navy in the world, 29 modern battleships to Germany's 19. They now impose a naval blockade on Germany, preventing contraband goods, including food, from reaching it by sea. The aim is to bring Germany's economy to its knees and force it to surrender.
British always had this great tactical advantage when it comes to things like this, because in any war there's always like Britain caused the blockade, because if you want to go to any side at the sea, you will have to go through Britain or surrounding areas. So they could just create blockades to block people, whether it's Russia, Germany, Sweden or whatever, Norway.
But a week later, the British cruiser HMS Pathfinder becomes the first victim in history of a lethal new weapon, the submarine-launched torpedo. German submarines, or U-boats, have a surface range of 9,000 miles and can attack undetected from beneath the waves.
Yeah, these submarines. I think submarines has been around for way longer than this time, but I think these were the first submarines that were more of a modern time submarines. Yeah, you could say that, because they were fast underwater, they had long ranges, they could fire torpedoes like that. This was basically the modern submarine, or the what we call a submarine nowadays. This was, I think, the first one of those. So German engineering, it proved dangerous in World War II, man. World War II, we know that lots of planes and tanks, German, they just had the edge. Even in World War I, they just introduced submarine like that.
They herald a deadly new challenge to Britain's command of the seas. On the Eastern Front, Russian armies invade East Prussia, but they blunder into disaster at the Battle of Tannenberg, where General von Hindenburg and his Chief of Staff, Erich Ludendorff, mastermind a brilliant German victory, taking 90,000 prisoners and destroying an entire Russian army. The Russians contribute to their own defeat by transmitting uncoded wireless messages. A second massive German victory at Masurian Lakes forces the Russians into retreat. In just 6 weeks, the Russian army suffers nearly 1/3 casualties. Meanwhile, Austro-Hungary's invasion of Serbia suffers a humiliating reverse at the Battle of Tser. Austro-Hungary's offensive against Russia also ends in disaster and retreat, with the loss of more than 300,000 men. The fortress town of Przemysl is cut off and besieged by the Russians. The Germans are forced to come to the rescue, launching a diversionary attack towards Warsaw.
Germans
It
and
leads to
Warsaw.
weeks of brutal winter fighting around the Polish city of Łódź, but there is no clear winner. Meanwhile, the Turkish Ottoman Empire has joined the Central Powers, declaring war on its old enemy, Russia. Turkish warships bombard the Russian ports of Odessa and Sevastopol, while in the Caucasus, Russian troops cross the Turkish frontier.
Damn, is there any country that Russia doesn't border? It's ridiculous when you think about it. I think real life lore should make, I think he made the video, I don't know, but he should make a video about how many countries Russia borders. It's just ridiculous. It also borders Turkey or Ottoman Empire or whatever, that too.
Beyond Europe, the war rages on the world's oceans and in far-flung European colonies. German troops cross into British East Africa, modern Kenya, and occupy Taveta, while Allied forces seize the German colony of Togoland, modern Togo. But
Africans will be like, what the hell do you want from us, man? Fight at the Europe. Why are you here?
British forces invading German Cameroon are defeated at Garoua and Nsangakong, while a 3,000-strong force attacking German Southwest Africa, modern Namibia, is captured at Sanfontaine. A month later, British landings at Tanga end in chaos and defeat at the hands of a much smaller German force led by Colonel von Lettow-Vorbeck. Cut off from Germany, Lettow-Vorbeck goes on to wage a highly successful guerrilla war against the Allies, tying down huge numbers of troops. In Asia, Japan honors its treaty with Britain and declares war on Germany. Japanese forces go on to seize the German naval base at Tsingtao. The German colonies of Samoa and New Guinea surrender to troops from New Zealand and Australia. But in the Pacific, off the coast of Chile, German Admiral von Spee's powerful East Asia squadron sinks 2 British cruisers at the Battle of Coronel. Both ships are lost with all hands. 5 weeks later, he runs into a British naval task force at the Falkland Islands. 4 of the 5 German
Battle in South America. I'm surprised US didn't go, whoa, that's too close, man. Back off.
cruisers are sunk. Von Spee goes down with his flagship. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, British troops seize control of the Ottoman port of Basra, securing access to the vital Persian oil that fuels the British fleet. That winter, Austrian troops finally capture Belgrade. But the Serbs then counterattack and drive them back once more. The fighting in Serbia has already cost around 200,000 casualties on each side. In the North Sea, German warships mount a hit-and-run raid against English coastal towns, shelling Hartlepool, Whitby and Scarborough, and killing more than 100 civilians.
God damn it, Britain always goes through this kind of thing, isn't it? Whether it's World War II or World War I, cities always get bombed. Are British cities too close to the coastline or something, man? They usually, in World War II, the bombers came and bombed the London and everywhere. In here, they are doing that from the sea. Civilians just like walking around and just bombardment starts. That's just ridiculous, man.
On the Western Front, the French launched their first major offensive against the German lines. But the First Battle of Champagne leads to small gains at a cost of 90,000 casualties. While in the Caucasus, an Ottoman offensive through the mountains in midwinter ends in disaster at Sarikamish. Turkish casualties total 60,000, many frozen to death. On the Western Front, that first Christmas is marked in some sectors by a short truce and games of football in no man's land, the killing zone between the trenches.
They're playing football at the no man's land. That would be a sight, wouldn't it? I'm surprised India's not involved. I have no idea if India's going to involve or not, because it was ruled by Britain, I think. I'm surprised Britain didn't go to India and just, conscript tons of people just to get on them on the land to go to war. That was the first video. The second video is about 1915. So this covered entire 1914 right there. Damn, this is something, isn't it? Look at the casualties, man. It's like 90,000, 200,000. Damn, compared to Napoleonic Wars, the casualties went way up. I mean, did the population increase that much, or just wars are fought with that many people now? It must be the war just got bigger. That's just it. I don't think population grew at that level, because I remember hearing somewhere that World War I, World War II, Russia lost so many people that ratio of men and women was so unbalanced. There were lots of women compared to men in Russia. Even right now there is like that. That's because of war. It's ridiculous when your actual population, actual male population went down because of a war that happened a few decades ago. That's just long-lasting effect. That's a scarring effect. Thank God something happened after World War II that caused all the peace, European Union or whatever. Otherwise, Europe has been at each other's throat for a long, long time. But 80-year peace, I think that chain is broken now. Alright, we'll watch the World War I 1915 video next time. If you like my reaction, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And check out my new gaming channel, which is right here. All ladies and gents, World War I 1915. We saw the 1914 videos of World War I, the first year of World War I, where Archduke of Austria got assassinated. That kind of started all the chain event where entire world basically got into war. So Austria declared war on Serbia. Now obviously Russia is ally of Serbia, so Russia started to mobilize in order to defend Serbia. Then Germany is ally of Austria, so Germany started to mobilize because Russia started to mobilize. It's a stupid weird thing. And then Germany declares war on Russia and France. Why? Because France was ally of Russia. France didn't do anything, and just Germany like, we are war at you, and just started to invade that. Italy stays neutral even though Italy is ally of Austria and Germany. Then Germany invades Belgium, and UK basically said to Belgium, we got your back. And UK sends the message to Germany like, if you invade Belgium, we are going to there to attack you. And Germans ignore it, don't even send a reply, just ignore it. So British then joins in and declares war on Germany. Then basically trench warfare starts. Between France and Britain versus Germany. So trench warfare starts, a massive trench at the France border. So trench warfare is just horrible, man. It's really, really horrible. Between two trenches there's a no man's land where all the fighting happens and just people basically dies. It's a suicidal area. People just leaps out of trenches and they get mowed down. It's just of all the warfare, of all the battles, trench warfare has the probably most casualties, because basically a suicide thing. I didn't know that until I started to do reaction videos of this. I saw a clip on the what was that that Rowan Atkinson, so Death Adder or something like that, I don't know. So in that I saw it and I'm like, damn, this is heavy. Then I started to do all the reaction videos and I started to find out what is trench warfare, how horrible it is, and it's just no man's land and everything. So that was just horrible. Britain starts a naval blockade, because we all know British with their navy is just dominance. We've seen that in Napoleonic Wars. Britain has always had this dominant navy for centuries. Everybody knows if all the fighting you do on the sea, and Britain's just going to dominate you. So you devise your tactics around that. So Britain obviously started a naval blockade, but first time ever, German engineering, Germans comes up with the modern sense of submarine. Submarines have been before this, but not this level of this kind of submarine, because the submarine that we know of today basically emerged from here. German U-boats, which had a massive range that almost could touch United States and was undetected and could stay undetected for a long time. So that kind of changed the whole element of it. For centuries, Britain dominance on sea, that was kind of like, now it's a threat, because doesn't matter how dominant you are with your boats, if a submarine just comes at you, you can't even see it, and shoots a torpedo and takes you down, your dominance went away. So that was a massive change of the image of everything for past centuries, where Britain is just dominant. Now we're not so sure, because there are submarines here. So we've seen this always, even in World War II. Germans always bring us some technology that gave them a massive edge. So yeah, that was something. Then Ottomans joined in the fight and attacked Russia. Then basically World War happens, where in Africa, South America and everywhere else this war starts, because most of those places are controlled by European countries, European colonies. So obviously war happens there. So there are lots of people who says world wars, they were basically fought on Europe. No, not really, because Europe kind of controlled everywhere at that time, in Africa and in lots of Asias and places, South America. So basically war happened everywhere, because war started on Europe. So that was something. Then Germany started to bomb UK in its cities. I don't think that happened before this, right? I think World War I, this is the first time it happened. So that must be surprising, because everybody has this mentality, when war happens, it basically happens at the border. Usually the main cities are fine, towns are fine until the war comes too close. But in here, Britain has cities and towns so close to the sea, Germany just basically sells them, and that kills a lot of civilians. That's just horrible, man, because you are just going on your day, you are in a city, you're like, what, war is happening, but here everything's fine, and suddenly bombs starts to drop and lots of people die. That's just horrible, man. Then short truce happen, and all the soldiers start to play football in the trenches, in the no man's land. I mean, that's just ridiculous. No man's land has this psychology behind it, like it's so horrible, where dead bodies lie and everything. Nobody's even go there to pick up the dead bodies, because they died too. So dead bodies lying around is just horrible, and they start to play football there. I think there was some psychology behind it, that if you play football and make a light of this situation, maybe next time when trench warfare starts, people would be a bit more confident than just afraid. I think it would be that. But yeah, all of that happened. So that was 1914, the first year of World War I. So now let's watch World War I 1915 Epic History TV.
January 1915. World War I is just 5 months old, and already around 1 million soldiers have fallen. A war that began in the Balkans has engulfed much of the world. The Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire fight the Allies: Britain, France, Russia, Serbia and Montenegro, Belgium and Japan. In Poland and the Baltic, the Russian army has suffered a string of massive defeats, but continues to battle German and Austro-Hungarian forces. Austro-Hungarian troops have also suffered huge losses and are humiliated by their failure to defeat Serbia. In the Caucasus Mountains, Russian and Ottoman forces fight each other in freezing winter conditions. While on the Western Front, French, British and Belgian troops are dug in facing the Germans, in trenches stretching from the English Channel to Switzerland.
That is a massive trench though. Entire France border in that side. Damn. What, 200-300 mile long trench?
As part of the world's first strategic bombing campaign, Germany sends 2 giant airships known as Zeppelins to bomb Britain. They hit the ports of King's Lynn and Great Yarmouth, damaging houses and killing 4 civilians. At sea, at the...
Damn, this is horrible. Britain always had bad luck about this in World War I, World War II, where their cities just get bombed and people just die. Damn.
Battle of Dogger Bank, the British Navy sinks 1 German cruiser, but the rest of the German squadron escapes. Command of the Seas has allowed Britain to impose a naval blockade of Germany, preventing vital supplies, including food, from reaching the country by sea. Germany now retaliates with its own blockade. It declares the waters around the British Isles to be a war zone, where its U-boats will attack Allied merchant ships without warning. Britain relies on imported food to feed its population. Germany plans to starve her into surrender.
That is just threatening Britain by naval blockade of a kind. Damn, those submarines just turned around everything, didn't it? If you do this, no merchant is going to do business with you because they'd be afraid. Like usually, whenever the naval warfare happens, it's been happening for centuries by now. This time, but whenever it happens, people look at the horizon like somebody's coming. Yes, in submarines, you don't even know when it's coming, and you just die. I mean, that's even more scary than anything.
On the Eastern Front, German Field Marshal von Hindenburg launches a winter offensive and inflicts another massive defeat on the Russian army at the Second Battle of Masurian Lakes. The Russians lose up to 200,000 men, half of them surrendering amid freezing winter conditions. The Russians have more success against Austria-Hungary. The city of Przemysl falls after a 4-month siege, netting the Russians 100,000 prisoners. Austria-Hungary's total losses now reach 2 million. Meanwhile, the British and French send warships to the Dardanelles to threaten Constantinople, capital of the Turkish Ottoman Empire. They believe a show of force will quickly cause Turkey to surrender. They bombard Turkish shore forts in the narrow straits, but 3 battleships are sunk by mines and 3 more damaged. The attack is called off. On the Western Front, the British attack at Neuve-Chapelle, but the advance is soon halted by German barbed wire and machine guns. British and Indian units suffer 11,000 casualties, about a quarter of the attacking force. 6 weeks later, at the Second Battle of Ypres, the Germans attack with poison gas for the first time on the Western Front.
There you go. There's that poison gas thing. My God, World War One was kind of scary in a lot of way because lots of new things were getting introduced: submarines, poison gas, and all these things. I mean, World War Two people expected some horrible things. When in World War One, you don't even know things like this would happen. So that was seriously horrible, especially in trench warfare like that. Damn.
A cloud of lethal chlorine forces Allied troops to abandon their trenches. But the Germans don't have enough reserves ready to exploit the advantage. Soldiers on both sides are quickly supplied with crude gas masks.
Yeah, because I remember hearing a story where they released the gas but didn't account for the wind. So it backfired. It came back and, it hit all their soldiers, all those gas. So then they had to supply with all these masks and it was just horrible. And they had all these long-term effects in the bodies and it's so horrible, man.
As a chemical weapons arms race begins. The Allies land ground troops at Gallipoli, including men of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, the Anzacs. Their goal is to take out the shore forts that are preventing Allied warships reaching Constantinople. But they immediately meet fierce
By the way, that chemical warfare started an event, a chain of events that is even felt right now, because it just gave every country in the world a sense that in any war, in massive war like this, you could be faced with this kind of chemical attacks. So that gave rise to all the chemical weapons and biological weapons. So lots of country has secret facilities with a really bad biological weapons, viruses basically, that would make current crisis basically look like a firecracker. So that's just ridiculous.
Turkish resistance and are pinned down close to the shore. The day before the landings, the Ottoman Empire begins the systematic deportation and murder of ethnic Armenians living within its borders. The Armenians are a long-persecuted ethnic and religious minority, suspected of supporting Turkey's enemies.
There you go, that's Armenian genocide.
Men, women and children are transported to the Syrian desert and left to die. In all, more than 1 million Armenians perish.
That is just horrible,
The Allies
man.
condemn the events as a crime against humanity and civilization and promise to hold the perpetrators criminally responsible. To this day, the Turkish government disputes the death toll and that these events constituted a genocide.
They don't just dispute it, they just say it's not genocide, it didn't even happen. That's, to me, it really pisses me off, man. If you did shitty things, just admit to it at least.
On the Eastern Front, a joint German-Austro-Hungarian offensive in Galicia breaks through Russian defences, recapturing Przemysl and taking 100,000 prisoners. It is the beginning of a steady advance against Russian forces. At sea, the British passenger liner Lusitania, sailing from New York to Liverpool, is torpedoed by a German U-boat off the coast of Ireland without warning. 1,198 passengers and crew perish, including 128 Americans. US President Woodrow Wilson and the American public are outraged. But Germany insists the liner was a fair target, as the British used her to carry military supplies. In May, the Allies launched the second...
So let me get this straight. Germany sinks a ship and over 100 Americans die, and Americans don't declare war. Nowadays, a single Americans die somewhere and that's just USA is at war. So over 100 people die, USA didn't get involved. That doesn't make sense to me. After hearing this, anyone would think that that's it, America just entered the war, but no.
Battle of Artois, in another effort to break through the German lines. The French make the main attack at Vimy Ridge, while the British launch supporting attacks at Aubert Ridge and Festubert. The Allies sustain 130,000 casualties and advance just a few thousand yards.
Damn, people are dying like flies, man. Look at that. In the Napoleonic Wars, these casualties felt so big. Nowadays, every battle, just 100,000 dead, 200,000 dead. It's like nothing. That's why lots of Europe is empty, especially in men, because lots of female outnumbers men because of this wars, especially in Russia.
That summer, above the Western Front, the Fokker Eindecker helps Germany win control of the air. It's one of the first aircraft with a machine gun able to fire forward through its propeller, thanks to a new invention known as interrupter gear. Allied aircraft losses mount.
Germany just invents things and has dominance over everything. That we saw that in World War II. We see here in World War I. This is ridiculous. They have dominance in sea because of submarines. Now they have dominance over sky because of this. They might not have the massive army or the most competent army or anything, but that technology always gives them the edge and makes them really threatening.
Rapidly in what becomes known as the Fokker Scourge.
But now it enters, okay.
Italy, swayed by British and French promises of territorial gains at Austria-Hungary's expense, joins the Allies.
There you go.
Declaring war.
In last video I was surprised that Italy was with Germany and Austria. Like really? It was neutral, but it was allies of them. Because I always knew World War I Italy was part of the Britain, France and Russia and them. Like this, okay.
War on Austria-Hungary and later the Ottoman Empire and Germany. The Italian army makes its first assault against Austro-Hungarian positions along the Isonzo River, but is repulsed with heavy losses. Meanwhile, the Allies face a crisis on the Eastern Front. The Russians have begun a general retreat, abandoning Poland. German troops enter Warsaw on the 5th of August. Tsar Nicholas II dismisses the Russian army's commander-in-chief, Grand Duke Nicholas, and takes personal command. It will prove disastrous for the Tsar, as he becomes more and more closely tied to Russian military defeat.
Yeah, we know what happened.
At Gallipoli, the Allies land reinforcements at Suvla Bay, but neither they nor a series of fresh attacks by the Anzacs can break the deadlock. Conditions for both sides are terrible. Troops are tormented not only by the enemy, but by heat, flies, and sickness. In the Atlantic, a German U-boat sinks the liner SS Arabic. 44 are lost, including 3 Americans. In response to further US warnings, Germany ends all attacks on passenger ships.
There you go. USA like, yeah. Now this is the last time, man. And Germany like, you know what, let's not try and test this. Because if USA joins in, it's gonna be a bit too much.
On the Western Front, the Allies mount their biggest offensive of the war so far, designed to smash through the front and take pressure off their beleaguered Russian ally. The French attack in the 3rd Battle of Artois and 2nd Battle of Champagne. The British, with the help of poison gas, attack at Loos. Despite initial gains, the attacks soon get bogged down, with enormous losses on all sides. Allied troops land at Salonika in Greece to open a new front against the Central Powers and bring aid to Serbia. But the Allies are too late. Bulgaria joins the Central Powers, and their joint offensive overruns Serbia in 2 months. That winter, the remnants of the Serbian army escape through the Albanian mountains. Their losses are horrific. By the end of the war, 1/3 of Serbia's army has been killed, the highest proportion of any nation. Fierce fighting continues on the Italian front, as Italian troops launch the 3rd and 4th battles of the Isonzo. Austro-Hungarian forces, though outnumbered, are dug in on the high ground and impossible to dislodge. In the Middle East, a British advance on Baghdad is blocked by Turkish forces at the Battle of Ctesiphon, 25 miles south of the city. The British withdraw to Kut, where they are besieged. The Allies abandon the Gallipoli campaign. 83,000 troops are secretly evacuated without alerting Turkish forces. Not a man is lost. It's one of the best executed plans of the war. The campaign has cost both sides 250,000 casualties. 1915 is a bad year for the Allies. Enormous losses for no tangible gains. But there is no talk of peace. Instead, all sides prepare for even bigger offensives in 1916, with new tactics developed from earlier failures. All sides still believe a decisive battlefield victory is within grasp. Epic History TV relies on the support of viewers like you. Please visit our Patreon page and consider pledging as little as $1 per...
Yeah, people, go to Patreon and, support Epic History TV. It's a really good channel. Damn, this world war seems so stupid, because when you're at war at some country, it makes sense that you take over that country, you take over resources, things like that, like USA did with Iraq. Makes sense. But the entire world is at war, and what are you fighting for? Even if you win, lots of places are destroyed. Who gained what? It's just for ego. So world war seems so stupid. And it all because one guy got shot because of some other guy. That has nothing to do with the nation powers. It's just ego led to all these things. Damn. One guy got shot and the entire world is at war. That's so stupid. At least World War II had some ideology behind it, like Germany, Hitler had some ideology behind where he wanted to dominate at war like Napoleon did. And that kind of makes sense, where people just gather up to fight him. That kind of makes sense. When World War I, it's just one guy gets shot and people rather do, de-escalate things, just escalated everything. Like, I have your back, and everybody just started on war. That's just stupid. Alright, we'll see World War I 1916 next time. Even though, I think USS stance here was really good. Like, some people died, they didn't just resort to war, like we are at war. I mean, that's what basically everybody did. That was a stupid thing. Not all countries should have jumped like that, like we have your back. No, just chill out. The USS stance was kind of good, like not jumping on the bandwagon to just attack everybody. Alright, if you like my reaction, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, ladies and gents, World War I 1916. This is the third part in 4-part series. I've done already the reaction to the first 2 parts. Check the card if you haven't seen one. So now recap. And I'm gonna extremely simplify this, because why not? So, Archduke of Austria got shot, and Austria's like, I'm gonna punch you. Russia's like, no, you can't do that, no. And Germany like, what about me? And then Germany's like, you know what, I'm gonna punch Russia and France at the same time, because France is gonna eventually join in. And then they're like, you know what, when I come to think of it, Belgium's not a country, that's just a road to go to France. And UK be like, but that road is under my protection. Then Germans are like, did you hear something? I thought I heard something. Alright, let's just continue. And the British is like, you see that? That's probable cause. Now we can morally go to war. So British basically arrived at French border before even French did. And French and British together fought Germany and Austria. They saw things around like, there's not much of cover here. How are we gonna play for long if there is not much of cover? Let's just dig in trenches like bunch of squirrels. So they did that. Then they're like, oh look, it's Christmas. What would Jesus think? So they basically called a short-term truce. And they're like, you know what, when we're at it, why the hell not? Let's just play football. So they played football. Then German be like, you know what, we are killing each other at the border, there is that. But what about those people in Britain who are drinking tea and marveling at the mystery of God's creation? What about them? So they basically send the blame to bomb everybody in Britain. Then British and French ships threatened Constantinople to strong arm them into surrender. But they fell short to simple dastardly move of mines. So that didn't work. Then introducing gas attacks, giving the sprinkle of nightmare to the First World War. Because how can you call that First World War the main war, the main event, if it doesn't have the special ingredient of horror? Then Armenian genocide happens, and they deny it. Even today they're denying. What genocide? I don't know anything about genocide, like a bunch of a-holes. Then Germans sink a US ship, and every American's like, yeah, that's right, Second Amendment, let's go to war. Then US president be like, no, we are not going at war. So they didn't go at war. Then German engineering, machine gun fire through the propellers. So they basically dominated the air. Then Italy be like, huh? What? There's a war on? Huh. Alright, I guess we are at war too. So they join in the war. Then Tsar Nicholas is like, I'm much better than Napoleon ever was. I can do this much better. So he basically fires his general and try to take charge of his army, which will result in basically massacre of his entire family by Soviet Union along the way. So US president calls Germany like, hey Germany, stop your attack on ships, otherwise every single American will arrive there with guns in their arms screaming Second Amendment. Germany be like, yeah, alright, fine, no attack on ships. So they calls off the attack. Then after many deaths, every leader of every country is like, you know what, that was just a trailer. The movie has just begun. Dun, dun, dun. So that was basically in the gist of what happened in 1914-1915 in World War I. Or let's watch World War I 1916.
World War I was supposed to have been a short and glorious war. But by 1916, a new kind of industrialized warfare had seen the death toll soar into the millions, with no end in sight. Naval blockades were beginning to cause shortages of food and fuel across Europe, while thousands of women had entered the workforce, replacing the men sent to fight in their millions. All sides were preparing for a long war.
Same thing happened in World War II, where women just went to factories and everything to keep the country going, where every man was kind of fighting at the borders, especially in World War II, where there was tons of people thrown at the borders.
The war has raged for a year and a half as the Allies continue to battle the Central Powers, recently joined by Bulgaria. At sea, the British maintain their naval blockade of Germany, preventing the import of food and other vital raw materials. Germany has retaliated with a U-boat blockade of Britain, but has to limit its attacks to avoid provoking the neutral USA, whose citizens have already been caught in the crossfire.
They're like, watch out Germany.
On the Western Front, French, British and Belgian troops are dug in opposite the Germans, both sides trapped in the bloody...
By the way, I think in the first video I said that I watched a Blackadder episode about, Rowan Atkinson's TV show, where they are in trenches and it was World War II. But no, it was this particular trench warfare. It was about this. It wasn't about World War II. I saw it again. It was about this particular trench warfare the episode was about, and it was just awesome, man. In the end, they just do some dialogues and just walks off into the no man's land charge, and that's when the numbering starts, and that was so epic. It was about this particular trench warfare.
Stalemate of trench warfare. On the Eastern Front, the Russians have ended their long retreat and stabilized the line, but their army has suffered huge losses. On the Italian front, Italian troops have launched a series of costly, unsuccessful attacks against strong Austro-Hungarian defences. While on the Balkan front, the Central Powers have overrun Serbia, whose army is forced to make a bitter retreat through the Albanian mountains. Now, on the 5th of January, Austro-Hungarian troops attack Montenegro. They are delayed at the Battle of Mojkovac, but 3 weeks later, Montenegro is forced to surrender. On the Caucasus front, the Russians launch a surprise winter offensive against Ottoman Turkish forces. 6 weeks later, Russian troops occupy the city of Erzurum. In April, they capture the Black Sea port of Trebizond. Meanwhile, the British transport 2 motorboats to Lake Tanganyika in Africa. They finally arrive after a 10,000-mile trip by sea and land, and help the British seize control of the...
Damn, that's a long ride. When they arrive there, they'll be like, alright, I think we're gonna go to sleep, you continue.
strategic lake from local German forces. The same month, in German Cameroon, German troops besieged on Mora Mountain for 18 months finally surrender to the Allies. It marks the end of the Cameroon campaign. On the Western Front, the Germans unleash a devastating assault on the French fortress town of Verdun. German General Erich von Falkenhayn knows France will defend this symbolic town to the last man. His plan, in his own words, is to bleed France white in its defense. It is the strategy of attrition.
Is that what I think
Verdun
that is?
becomes one of the most terrifying battles of the war. A mincing machine, where infantry divisions are destroyed almost as fast as they can be fed into the line.
Damn, I knew that was... So basically his tactics was, this is the town they are going to defend at any cost, so they are going to eventually send in men at any cost. So basically kill off lots of people so army gets weakened. So his plan was basically to win this war, just kill most of them. That's just too grim, man. And why is that town so important that they are going to defend it till the last man? I mean, I highly doubt there is any place that would be worth it that much that you risk losing every man and risk losing war. What's so great about that town?
In Britain, 1 million men have already volunteered for military service.
Alright.
But the government realizes it won't be enough. Britain becomes the last major power to introduce conscription. That spring, on the Western Front, British troops are the last to be issued.
Long time ago, I knew about war and everything, but I didn't know about conscriptions. Like, when I was a kid, I always had this mentality, like, people join the army to betterment for their country. But then I literally, conscription means basically government force you to fight for your country. That's just effed up. People are walking around right now thinking, oh, this is 21st century. This is modern age, nothing ever. But if World War III starts tomorrow, first of all, it's going to be one of the shortest war of all time, because everything will be just flattened. But if it starts, you could see conscriptions all around the place. So most of us right now talking could be, pushed to, fight for the country at the border with close to no military, training. They would give you training, but that won't be enough. They will be training for long years. It's a war. What can you do? And like I said, that no man's land type of thing. There are some situations in war where they know most of you are going to die, but they have to throw you there. So it's a really weird concept, this war. There's a high chance when people leave, they're not coming back, and that's just effed up. You're basically an accountant, you're an engineer, and you're called to fight at the border because there's world war going on. Why? Because some leader didn't see eye to eye. Ugh, that's just stupid. In here a guy got shot, and look at that, all these people died at border for what?
Issued with steel helmets. The nature of trench warfare produces a high proportion of head wounds. The German Stahlhelm, the French Adrian helmet, and the British Mark I steel helmet offer limited protection from shell splinters and shrapnel. Neutral Portugal has been cooperating with the British, which seems to offer the best chance of holding on to her African colony, Portuguese Angola. On the 9th of March, Germany retaliates by declaring war on Portugal.
Germany is being too, I don't know, because of their engineering, they know they have better engineers or something, but they are too, quick to trigger. Like, you're against us, all right, we declare war against you. You're against us, we declare war against you. Germany basically declared war against France. They didn't do nothing. It's just, they just assumed they are going to join in the war, which they probably would have, but they're just going to join the war because of Russia. So they just try to attack them. France like, whoa, where did that come from? Germany is just too trigger happy right now. Maybe they are really powerful around that time, who knows.
On the Eastern Front, Russia launches an attack near Lake Narok to relieve pressure on the French at Verdun. But it's a disaster. There are 100,000 Russian casualties, and the attack fails to divert any German troops from the fighting at Verdun. In Dublin, Irish Republicans launch an armed revolt against British rule. It becomes known as the Easter Rising, and is put down after 6 days of street fighting.
Oh, that's really effed up, man. World war is going on, you're gonna revolt now? I mean, I get it. You have your reasoning, but there's timing matters, man.
In the Middle East, after a 5-month siege, British forces at Kut surrender. General Townsend leads 9,000 British and Indian soldiers into captivity. About half later die from starvation or disease. Britain wants Arab support in its fight against the Ottoman Empire, so it's promised Arab leaders an independent Arab state after the war. But now, Britain and France secretly sign the Sykes-Picot Agreement, planning after the war to divide the Middle East into British and French zones of control. Unaware of this deal, Hussein bin Ali, Sharif of Mecca, leads the Arabs in revolt against Turkish Ottoman rule. In the Battle of Mecca, his forces seize control of the Holy City. On the Italian front, Austro-Hungarian forces launch a surprise attack at Asiago. Italian defences give way. Austro-Hungarian troops are poised to break through into northern Italy. That month in the North Sea, the German High Seas Fleet clashes with the British Grand Fleet at the Battle of Jutland. In the only major naval battle of the war, the British suffer heavier losses, but claim victory as the German fleet withdraws and does not re-emerge from its base for the rest of the war.
Damn. So British being dominant navy for hundreds of years, they just went to the battle and crushed Germans like that. What happened to U-boats? I mean, I would think that submarines would play a vital role here. Because you can't see submarine, you can't attack a submarine, but submarine can attack you. Doesn't that just makes Germany overpowered in navy? What happened to submarines? Why didn't they interfere?
For the summer of 1916, the Allies have planned major simultaneous offensives against the Central Powers, from east and west. Now they are needed more than ever to relieve pressure on the French at Verdun and the Italians at Asiago. the Russians launch their attack first. On the Eastern Front, General Alexei Brusilov has carefully maintained the element of surprise. His troops break through the enemy lines, in some places advancing 60 miles and taking 200,000 prisoners. This brilliant, though costly, Russian attack achieves its aim, as the Central Powers are forced to redeploy troops from other fronts to shore up the line. At sea, British cruiser HMS Hampshire, en route to Russia, hits a mine and sinks off Orkney. Among the 650 dead is Britain's iconic Secretary of State for War, Lord Kitchener. 3 days later in the Adriatic, Italian troopship Principe Umberto is sunk by a German submarine. It's the deadliest sinking of the war, with 1,900 lives lost.
Damn.
On the Western Front,
There's that damn
Britain
U-boat.
and France launched their major summer offensive, the Battle of the Somme. Hopes are high for a breakthrough, but the first day is a disaster. A long Allied artillery bombardment fails to knock out German defences, and waves of British infantry are cut down by machine gun fire as they
Yes.
advance into no man's land.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about from the start of the video. Infantry just, runs like screaming, and there's that guy, smoking cigarette and just firing machine guns. That's just effed up, man.
In the space of a few hours, the British suffer 57,000 casualties, a third of them killed. It's the worst day in the history of the British Army. But more attacks are ordered, and the battle will rage for another 5 months. Encouraged by the Russian advance, Romania joins the Allies. But despite an initially successful advance into Transylvania, Romania quickly faces a counter-offensive from German, Bulgarian and Austro-Hungarian forces. The Allied force at Salonika
That's just effed up, man. Romania's like, that nervous twitching guy there, and like Russia is advancing. If Russia is doing that, I think we have Russia here, and I think we'll be fine. Let's just try to attack, just slowly get inside and try to attack them. As soon as they announce they're going to attack Austria, Germany, and everybody from all sides, like, you joined, I'm gonna punch you, and they just ran towards it.
tries to support Romania by launching their own offensive towards Monastir. With Serbian troops in the lead, there are small gains, but dogged Bulgarian resistance prevents a breakthrough. On the Western Front, General von Falkenhayn finally calls off the attack at Verdun. The French army has honoured their commander General Nivelle's promise. Ils ne passeront pas. They shall not pass. But victory comes at a terrible price. 360
They shall now. I thought that was from the Lord of the Rings, but apparently they took it from here.
5,000 casualties. The Germans lose almost as many. Verdun remains one of the bloodiest battles in human history.
Oh, God.
For his defeat at Verdun, Falkenhayn is sacked.
If I see some kind of graphics, it's fine. But if I see some real images, it's like, damn, that's just, ugh. Just heavy, man.
And Germany's heroes of the Eastern Front, von Hindenburg and Ludendorff, take command in the west. Meanwhile, the Battle of the Somme continues. Near the village of Flers, the British introduce a new weapon they hope can break the deadlock of the trenches. It is called the tank. But despite some small successes,
It's just some new thing. Maybe it will help. I don't know. It's called a tank. Damn.
first tanks are too few in number and too prone to mechanical failure to make any real impact. On the Eastern Front, Russia's
Well, even if it doesn't make that much of an impact, just psychological warfare will be enough.
Brusilov offensive comes to an end. Casualty estimates vary wildly, but it's clear both sides have suffered catastrophic losses. Neither the Russian nor the Austro-Hungarian army ever fully recovers.
Oh, come on, look at the numbers, man. 1 million, 1.4 million is like...
On the Italian front, heavy fighting rages throughout the autumn, as Italian forces make repeated, costly assaults against Austro-Hungarian positions along the Isonzo River. The Battle of the Somme comes to an end amid autumn rain and mud. The Allies have advanced 10 miles at the cost of 600,000 casualties.
God damn it. People are
German
dying left and
losses
right.
are about 450,000. The Allies reassure themselves that this is a winning strategy, because at this rate, Germany will run out of men first.
What I don't understand is, what were the leaders thinking? The generals and all the leaders, because this is First World War. Before this war was Napoleonic Wars, or what the major war was. This is stupid, because this is unprecedented numbers, like millions and millions are dying. They're like, I think we can win this. Just a few more people dead and we can win this. We are getting all this courage. They are not seeing like, holy, this is too many dead people, man. World War II I can understand, like you have World War I in your history. I mean, you can follow on that. Like this many died then, there was a gas attack, there was also a tank. You just have to follow. That's just World War II was basically a more powerful version of World War I in some way. But World War I is the original one. How did they went through all this gas attacks, tanks, all these dead people? They're like, we can still do this.
Meanwhile, disaster engulfs Romania.
Not even that. World War II had Hitler, like some extremist who want to dominate the world. There is no such things like that in World War I. Here, it's just a guy gets shot and everybody's pissed. That's it. Why didn't they just at certain points like, you know what, this is going on too much. Too many people die. Let's just try to call a truce. Why are they just like going end to end like, we are going to do this. Either it's you or me. I don't understand that. How important, it wasn't Isaac Newton. How important that guy was who got shot, Archduke of Austria. I mean, I get it, he's Archduke, but it's not like Archduke of World or something. Damn.
Country is overrun by the Central Powers. Romanian forces suffer 250,000 casualties. The remnants of its army take position alongside the Russians on the Eastern Front. That winter, Franz Joseph, Emperor of Austria since 1848, dies. He is succeeded by his son, Karl. In Britain, Prime Minister Herbert Asquith is forced from office and succeeded by David Lloyd George, while General Joffre is replaced as French Commander-in-Chief by General Nivelle, who promises victory through bold, aggressive action. Amid the comings
So the even leaders got changed, but their position did not. They're still fighting.
goings, US President Woodrow Wilson's attempts to mediate a peace settlement come to nothing.
For
Neither
the love
side.
of Americans who has nothing to do with this, they're like, yo, come on, man. Come on, chill out already. Try to broken peace. Americans are screaming there, man, everybody chill out. Just let's talk about peace talk. And they're like, no, I'm gonna kill that guy.
Is willing to make concessions. Epic History TV relies on the support of fellow history lovers. So if you like what we do, please consider pledging.
Yeah, seriously, people. If you have money to support some channel, this is the channel that needs your support. Epic History TV. That's the great content everywhere. Go to Epic History TV channel and go to their Patreon page and, give them money. World War II, all around you can understand with all the horrific thing happening. You can blame those things on some people. You can blame things on other people. You can see the mentality around it. It was just one figure that was just evil and everybody tried to fight it. There was a noble cause there and everything. World War I is basically just some guy killed one guy and that just pissed everybody off, and one by one everybody fought each other. Sometimes this tells me like every country should have some allies. but not entire world's countries should form allies here and there and create this kind of 2 or 3 groups, because this would happen. One country get pissed, their allies joins in, the opposing countries allies joins in, and it's just basically a world war because of small thing. This is just stupid. Damn, millions of people dying left and right. 1 million, 1.4 million, 600,000. It's like nothing. Damn, that's just too heavy. Alright people, if you like my reaction, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Ladies and gents, welcome to CG Reaction. We are doing World War I 1917 by the channel Epic History TV. We did the last parts and we saw how Archduke of Austria got shot. Austria retaliated, Germany backed them up, Russia and France got in, and also Britain got in because Belgium was threatened. So all this country came to blows. In the French border, they dig out the massive 400 or so mile long trench. That's just ridiculous in scale when I think about it, that long of a trench, but damn, they did that. One of the most horrible trench warfare of all time. They fought there. So weirdly, America nearly came to the blows but didn't. They cooled off. That's good to hear, otherwise it would mean a massively different case. Another giant country got in, but they didn't, so that's good. So they fought off. Obviously this is in World War I, so 1917. So around this time, the most African and Asian countries were European colonies. So basically European war became the World War because wars broke out in Africa and Asia and everywhere. So that was something weird. Trench warfare is just horrible, man. The Battle of the Somme, I did the video, check the cards if you want to see the reaction. It was just too horrible, man. Obviously people lost their lives in a large number, but number is not the only issue. The way they died, they basically just walked up in there and got slaughtered. That was just too horrible. That's really horrible. To ease the pressure at Verdun, Britain had to recruit lots of their civilian to fight in the war, and basically they came there in masses at the Battle of Somme. Basically most of them just walked up there and got slaughtered by the machine guns. It was just ridiculous to think about it. You hear that there's a massive war going on, your country is threatened by Germany, Austria and everybody, so you just take up arm. You're a plumber, you're some other like a shop owner or something like that, and you just take some arm to defend your country. You go there thinking you'll make a difference. Basically you just walk up in there, you get slaughtered. You basically went there to get killed. How effed up is that, man? Trench warfare was seriously horrendous. It's better that trench warfare nowadays is very rare, and if it happens it's more controlled. It's not at this scale. World War I's trenches were really, really horrible. So the war broke out everywhere. USA tried to broker peace. That is weird to say, isn't it? Yeah, usually nowadays the mentality goes, it could be the wrong mentality, could be but still there's a mentality go, US basically goes to war. That's their persona. But in World War I, everybody was going to war, while USA is like, dude, chill out. That's weird to see. So yeah, this is it was just horrible war with millions and millions of died. Armenian genocide happened. They denied it. Even today they're denying it. That's just let's just watch the video.
In 1916, World War I became a war of attrition. Both sides began to focus less on winning victory on the battlefield than grinding down the enemy and inflicting such enormous losses they would be forced to surrender. In 1917, the strategy will push Europe's major powers to the brink of collapse. Germany knows it will lose a long war of attrition against the Allies, who have greater resources. So its leaders gamble. They resume unrestricted submarine warfare, believing their U-boats can cut off Britain's
war of attrition. I think that just basically means just killing off most of their army. So their army gets thin and they get defeated on the trenches. That's why they attacked Verdun, I think.
food imports by sea. and starve the country into surrender within 6 months. But the new shoot-on-sight tactics mean neutral American ships will inevitably be caught in the crossfire, risking America joining the war on the Allied side. Just 2 days into the campaign, the SS Housatonic, an American steamer carrying wheat from Galveston, Texas to England, is sunk by a U-boat. The British then pass to the US government a telegram they've intercepted from German Foreign Secretary.
British must be like, oh, thank you, God, and just fastly just written a letter. See, USA, see that? Germany killed your boat again. They don't respect you.
Arthur Zimmermann to the German ambassador in Mexico. Germany is encouraging Mexico to attack America if America and Germany end up at war. The so-called Zimmermann telegram puts yet more pressure on US.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is not 1800s, this is 1917. USA is already way powerful by now, alright? How is Mexico going to fight USA? How is that even going to work? Is Germany even thinking things anymore?
President Wilson to declare war on Germany. In Russia, enormous casualties and bread shortages lead to riots and revolution. The Tsar abdicates. A provisional government takes charge.
The idiot, if he didn't went there to take charge of his army, just stayed there in his own country and tried to cool things down, maybe revolution wouldn't have happened that fast. Soviet maybe wouldn't have taken over. At least not another time of World War I.
Pledging to continue the war. But at the front, Russian troops begin to desert en masse.
That's what you need.
After a string of German provocations, the US finally declares war on Germany. It brings immense resources to the Allied cause, but they will take many months to mobilize. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure US wasn't inside the war of World War I. So maybe they declared it, but they never, war probably got over before they could join in, I'm pretty sure.
the German gamble of unrestricted submarine warfare may still pay off. April is the U-boat's most successful month of the war. They sink 886,000 tons of Allied shipping, an average of 17 ships a day, all packed with urgently needed food and supplies. Britain will face starvation if the U-boats are not defeated soon. On the Western Front, the British launched the Battle of Arras, a diversion to support a major upcoming French offensive. After heavy fighting, Canadian troops seized the high ground of Vimy Ridge. It's a limited Allied victory, but costs 150,000 Allied casualties to 130,000 German. Above the trenches, the First Air War has reached new levels of sophistication and deadliness. Reconnaissance aircraft are crucial for spotting enemy positions and directing artillery fire onto them. Scout aircraft or fighters try to shoot them down before they can execute their mission. New models of aircraft are developed every few months, but that spring, the superiority of German aircraft leads to heavy Allied losses in what becomes known as Bloody April.
When you haven't won a Stanley Cup for 40 years, I don't care how much talent you may or may not have.
That's what you want, isn't it? Everybody fighting on the ground, trench warfare is happening, gas attacks are happening, there are bomb blasted artillery fire, and now you have to see in the sky too, because like birds there could be two planes fighting each other in a dogfight. Planes falling out of the sky. This is a ridiculous time, man. People, you know, we see these videos, we hear history, but we can't really grasp of it. How would it feel to be around that time? It's just ridiculous, and the level of fear, man. because it doesn't matter what kind of war happens today, you always have this sense of security, like, yeah, there's a war between one or two countries or three countries, sure, it will calm down, something will happen. When everybody's fighting, you feel like the world is coming to an end. This is ridiculous. This is First World War. This is first time it's happening.
After the fall of Vimy Ridge, French General Robert Nivelle launches his main offensive. Expectations are high, but after initial success, the advance bogs down, and casualties quickly mount on both sides. The apparently senseless losses cause morale in the French army to collapse. Whole units mutiny, refusing to attack. General Nivelle is sacked as French commander-in-chief and replaced by General Pétain, hero of Verdun, who promises no more suicidal attacks. That summer, at Messines Ridge,
The photo themselves tells you who to trust, who to don't, because the last guy was too smug in the photo. This guy is too serious and looks veteran. Just seeing the photo, like, yeah, they're that guy, we want to support that guy.
the British tunnel under the German lines and detonate 19 enormous mines under the enemy position.
19, damn.
It's the largest man-made explosion in history to date, and paves the way to a brilliant but highly local British victory.
This is the largest man-made explosion? A nuclear explosion man-made? So, to the date means, doesn't mean today. To the date means to this day. Okay, I'm stupid. I thought when he said to the date, I meant he's talking about 2020. No, to the date means to the date of this video timeline, 1917.
In Greece, King Constantine, who has favoured neutrality, is forced to abdicate, and Greece joins the Allies.
Greece joined the Allies, oh no.
The government orders a new attack, but the July offensive is a disaster. The morale and discipline of the Russian army has collapsed. It can no longer be relied on to fight, and the Central Powers' counterattack is almost unopposed. At sea, the Allies begin to group their merchant ships into convoys, which sail under naval escort. The new system leads to a steady fall in losses. The tide is turning in the U-boat war.
So before USA declared war, they didn't thought of that, to make the convoy and give the escort. They thought of that after US joined the war. That's I smell something fishy there.
As discontent with the war grows in Germany, the German parliament, the Reichstag, passes a peace resolution, calling for a peace of understanding and reconciliation.
Now? Really,
It's
after all this?
ignored by the German High Command, which now effectively rules the country as a military dictatorship. In Belgium, the British launched their major offensive of 1917, the Third Battle of Ypres. It will be remembered as Passchendaele. Heavy shelling, rain and broken irrigation channels turned the battlefield into a sea of mud.
God,
In
look at
these
that.
impossible conditions, all hopes of a breakthrough soon fade. The attack is called off after 3 months, by which point the British have suffered 240,000 casualties, the Germans 200,000. On the Italian front, at the 11th Battle of the Isonzo, Italian and Austro-Hungarian forces batter each other into exhaustion. There are 150,000 Italian casualties, 100,000 Austro-Hungarian. That year, 1917, the list of Allied nations grows. Brazil, Liberia, China, and Siam all declare war on Germany as a result of German U-boat attacks, or to curry.
That is way too many people in Allied forces, man. There is no way in hell Germany can win now, especially not to forget US. China wasn't that big around that time, but still, come on, man. Numbers matter. USA, now Brazil and China. Look at the numbers.
Favour with the Allies. China will contribute many thousands of labourers working for the Allies in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. That year in the Middle East, British forces avenged their 1916 humiliation at Kut by defeating the Ottoman Turks and marching on to occupy Baghdad. British forces in Egypt advance across the Sinai Desert, but are thrown back by Ottoman forces at the First and Second Battles of Gaza. In July, Arab rebels capture the strategic Ottoman port of Aqaba. They are accompanied by a British military advisor, Captain T.E. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia. That autumn, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour issues the Balfour Declaration, expressing support for the creation of a national home for the Jews in Palestine. The aim is to rally Jewish support for the Allies, but the declaration contradicts existing pledges to Arab leaders. In October, the British finally win at Gaza, clearing the way for an advance into Palestine. 6 weeks later, General Allenby leads British troops into Jerusalem, ending 400 years of Ottoman rule.
I'm surprised that they took 400 years to take that place, because apparently that's the place of birth of Jesus, isn't it? That's the Christianity right there, which is mostly English-speaking countries are Christian. So they gave Muslim country the power over that and didn't try to attack them over and over again just to take control of that. That is weird.
With Russian forces in disarray, Germany is able to move troops from the east to the Italian front. At the Battle of Caporetto, they helped to smash through the Italian army.
Oh yeah,
advancing 7
Russian Revolution, because of that lots of Russian defected and this army fell weaker now because of Russian Revolution. So now they can focus all their manpower in this side. So now the trench warfare pressure is even going to get increased in this place.
20 miles and taking 250,000 prisoners. British and French divisions, desperately needed on the Western Front, have to be redeployed to shore up the line. In Russia, a second revolution brings Lenin's Bolshevik party to power. He is determined to end Russia's involvement in the war. In France, Georges Clemenceau becomes Prime Minister, nicknamed the Tiger.
Is Russia going to stop in the war like that? We are not with allies or anyone. They're just going to walk away? Damn, that would be heavy blow.
Promises total war and total victory. But for the Allies in late 1917, final victory looks uncertain. Russia has stopped fighting. French armies are recovering from mutiny. The Italian front has almost collapsed. And American reinforcements still seem a long way off. For the time being, the British are the only effective Allied force in the field. So the British attack at Cambrai with the first major tank assault in history. On the first day, nearly 400 tanks spearhead an advance of several miles through German defences.
400, damn!
But then the tanks break down or are knocked out. The Germans rush in reinforcements, and the gains are lost.
British with the great technology but always fell through that shoddy reliability of it. British will be like, yeah, see the technology, and then they all broke down, and British will be like, ah, you son of a...
Finland declares independence from Russia. Romania, isolated by the Russian collapse, signs an armistice with the Central Powers. 6 days later, Russia also signs an armistice. The Allied Eastern Front is no more.
Damn.
1917 has seen one major Allied power, Russia, knocked out of the war. But the arrival of a fresh new ally, America. Germany knows only military victory can now save it from being overwhelmed by Allied resources, and begins planning...
Yeah, who told you to go all the way then, huh? One after another. Germany just like, I'm gonna fight you, I'm gonna fight you, I'm gonna fight you. One guy got shot. They should have chosen, some other way to resolve things rather than just go all out war. They just directly attacked France thinking they're gonna join in anyway. Man, chill out, man.
One last massive onslaught for the spring of 1918. Epic History TV relies on the support of fellow history lovers. So if you like what we do, please consider pledging anything.
Yeah, go to Patreon and support Epic History, man. It's a really great channel. We all know what's gonna happen in 1918. Germany's gonna lose, obviously. Then they're gonna give strange feelings to Hitler. So Hitler's going to rise up, and we all know what's gonna happen in World War II. So basically, one guy got shot, and they created two wars. Effects of it. Talking about butterfly effects, damn. Alright, if you like my reaction, please don't forget to like and subscribe.